So, welcome everybody. I'm Andy Rambakis. I'm the person who's trying to fill Terry Stewart's shoes as president of the Wagner Society. So, welcome all of you. A few announcements to make. For those of you who knew our beloved member Gene Bass, I'm sorry to say he recently passed away. So may his memory be eternal and may he rest in peace. A few other things. I'd like to, I have not formally posted the upcoming programs yet. That will happen. But just to give you a little bit of a sneak preview, we have coming up in March, we've moved it from March 22nd to March 15th, a Zoom session with Desiree Mays on the Lover's Bane, the story of Tristan and Isolde as told in medieval art and literature. That'll be a Zoom presentation. We'll be sending out Zoom invitations as the date approaches. April 5th, we'll have another Zoom session with Jeffrey Buller talking about The Flying Dutchman After the Storm. In May, we are having our Richard Wagner birthday party. Plans are being made as we speak. It should be a fun event, and once everything is formulated, we'll be sending out more information about that. Date is not specified yet, but it'll be right around Wagner's birthday of May 22nd. In June 7th, we're going to have a talk by Kip Cranna, who is going to talk to us about Parsifal. Most likely talking about some of the older productions of San Francisco Opera, but may touch upon some of the Grail legend. Typically because we skip meetings in August because of people going to Bayreuth, we're scheduling the July and September meetings to straddle August as much as possible. So the July meeting will be on July 26th. The September meeting will be on September 6th. That's 6 weeks apart. The reason we are doing it that way is because those meetings are going to be 2 back-to-back Zoom sessions. And you are all going to be going back to college because we have Nicholas Krusek from Simon Fraser University in Canada, who sponsors a college-level course on Wagner and Nietzsche that he does online. People ordinarily have to spend $180 to sign up for his online course, which is given over 6 sessions. I approached him and asked him to give us an abbreviated course over 2 Zoom sessions, and that's why we're trying to make them as back-to-back as possible. So that'll be July 26th, September 6th, and September 6th. The advantage of that is if he assigns any homework on July 26th, he'll have plenty of time to do it before the next session. Okay. It should be a very interesting set of lectures. October 4th, we're going to have another Zoom session by Paul Schofield, who's a former member and wrote the book on Parsifal, the 5th opera of The Ring. He's going to, again, talk about Parsifal, talk about new thoughts he has on Parsifal as a 5th opera, and again, talk about the legend of Parsifal. November 1st, we're going to have a talk by Thomas Gray, who is going to, Professor Emeritus in Music from Stanford University, who is going to talk to us about Das Rheingold. And in December, we will have our usual Cosimo party. We may have a major announcement about that, but I'm keeping it secret right now. So that's all I'm going to say. At this point, I'd like to introduce our speaker, David Kanaga. Is that right? Kanaga. Okay. He's a composer and game designer based in Berkeley, California. His game scores include award-winning soundtracks to Proteus, Diane, and Panoramical. His directorial debut, and I had to ask him about the pronunciation of this because as a Greek, I was wondering if he used the ancient Greek pronunciation or the modern Greek pronunciation. There's a big difference. I can go into a whole lecture on that. But his directorial debut, and I'm going to use the ancient Greek pronunciation, Oikospiel, if it's modern Greek, it's Ikospiel. Oikospiel book was awarded the Nuovo Award at the Independent Games Festival and the Indiecade, am I saying all this right?
Yeah.
Okay. Grand Jury Prize in 2017. His work has been featured in shows at MoMA, SF MoMA, the Museum of Moving Image, and covered in publications including The Guardian, The Wire, and PC Gamer. His first live opera, Heat Cantata from Oikospiel Book 2, premiered at the Holland Festival in 2018. As a theorist, his article, Eco-Operatic Music Game Theory, was featured in the Oxford Handbook of Algorithmic Music. And he recently presented his research, Das California Gold, Wagner's Ghost Railroad, and the Regie, DAW, okay, at Stanford University's CCRMA. In 2020, he released an EDM arrangement of Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker, and he has released albums through Daniel Lopatin's software recording company, Orange Milk Records, Nominal Loop, along with many digital releases on Epic, Mega Games, and Bandcamp. So, here's our speaker, David Kanaga.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for that kind introduction, Andy. I feel like too many things I wrote down there. I was asked for a bio, and it just kept not coming. But it was fun to preview some of the things. I'll try to give my own little background to how I found my way into Wagner and everything too. But I do really want to say thank you, Terry, also for inviting me in the first place, Andy, and Tom Gray, who introduced me to Terry. I've been sort of increasingly obsessed with Wagner over the past 5 years since I started working on this soft Valkyrie project, what I'm going to talk about. And it's been very exciting being at the party last December, being able to talk to people about Wagner. I have not successfully gotten any friends of mine into Wagner. And I've got one friend, I've got him into Alex Ross's Wagnerism book and sort of Wagner lore, which is a great part of Wagner, of course. But anyway, so it's wonderful being here with you all, being able to talk to you, and I invite you to interrupt me at any time. I didn't really time my talk, so I'm going to try to be quick going through, but I most of all would love to talk to you all. So feel free to interrupt if you are so moved. So this title, Regiekomposition, is a sort of pun, a play on the famous and famously loathed regieoper, regie theater, of these strange productions where Brynhilde's, I don't know, dressed as a motorcyclist or whatever. And the project that I've done, I didn't have this idea going into it, but I kind of realized once I was halfway through that I was sort of applying that same idea, but to the realm of sound. And so this has been kind of a theme in my work, is that I kind of went into it kind of going wild, and then as I was working, I would run into a lot of things that felt like precedents, either in the Regie Theater or lots of Wagner quotes that made me think that what I was doing was a lot less radical in a way and more true to his spirit. So for instance, here's this letter from Wagner to Brahms, where he talks about, on occasion the charge has been made against me that my musical things were stage directions. Rheingold will have to suffer mightily from that allegation. On the other hand, it might perhaps not be uninteresting to perceive, in the following subsequent scores of the Ring of the Nibelung, how I managed to construct all kinds of musical thematic material upon the stage which is here established. And this is a fun metaphor, is one way to look at it, but I think that, and it might be confirmation bias from having worked with the material, in this way, but I think that there's a real sense in which the score is a stage. It's a sort of physical space, and I think that that's how I interpret what Wagner is saying there. But again, as to confirmation bias, I come from the world of video games, and of course there's all of this Kunstwerk tradition that goes through cinema and into video games. And this is a book I haven't read. I actually only learned about this several months ago, but it seemed to me the perfect book to kind of summarize my inspiration, what I was feeling, why I was attracted to Wagner, from Wagner to virtual reality. So I'm going to play a couple little clips of game scores that I did, and these are both got a decade and more old right now, but this is kind of the Gesamt attitude that I was cultivating then, and that has kind of turned into my Wagnerism. Well, here, I'm going to start with this one. Stop that there for now. This was a game called Proteus, which was my earliest success, and really the approach to it was I was working with this game designer, Ed Key, who did the programming, did the visuals, and when I came on, we decided that we should try to turn this island into a piece of living music. So depending on where you're moving in the island, the music's going to change. When it goes from night to day, the music's going to change. When you find the frogs, they play their little melodies. I was reading some Wagner lore. Apparently King Ludwig liked to hire musicians to hide out in the forest when he'd walk around at night. And I thought, oh, that's kind of like what we were doing with Proteus or whatever. But so anyway, wasn't thinking about Wagner at the time, though there are classical music samples in it. The Sunrise, I'm not going to play that, but I had Ravel samples. There's a Mendelssohn sample. I take the audio from recordings and cut them up and loop them, and this is kind of how I grew up, is treating audio as a raw material. So I'm going to play one other clip of an older game. This is this same idea of the environment and the music being closely related, or tightly kind of married, not just related. But this one, I'm going to pull. This is kind of hard to see, but this grid in the corner shows how the parameters are being controlled. It's actually controlled by like a MIDI controller, which is sort of like an old mixing board that you would mix, a stage show or a rock band with or whatever. But in this case, it's controlling musical parameters and landscape parameters. It's kind of this clay musical landscape. Oop, that's playing that. I don't know why. stop that there too. But that was definitely a big moment for me working on that. Really, I wish I could have you all sit and give it a touch, but it was very much about the tangible experience of music and treating audio-visual experience as sort of one substance, so that they really can't be separated. And some of that comes through the screen, but not all of it. So, so that was kind of my background that I feel is more this, I called it like the forest murmur Wagnerism, this kind of, in touch with the sensuous identities of nature. But then there's this other, video game history background that's more this sword and sorcery kind of Wagnerism that comes from, Wagner leads to Tolkien, Tolkien leads to Dungeons and Dragons leads to all these computer RPGs. This is one of my favorite ones, called The Legend of Zelda. And so I was interested as a sort of genealogical studies, digging into that. And case in point, this Legend of Zelda game in Japanese is called Kamigami no Toraifosu, and Kotodamarang in Japanese is called Kamigami no Tasogare. So probably a pun, I don't know. This is another very early video game score in this mode of Wagnerism from 1984. So then it goes into its own, we hear the ride start, and then it goes into its own thing there, of course. But that's this kind of mode of, okay, well, they're just going to sample the beginning of the ride, and it looks, it looks like this Conan the Barbarian game or something. Which, interestingly, I had a slide on this, took it out, but I want to digress briefly. We all know, I always associate Ride of the Valkyries with Apocalypse Now. And the guy who wrote Apocalypse Now, his follow-up movie to that, John Milius, was Conan the Barbarian. And so I kind of see that as this displaced Wagnerism, sword and sorcery, kind of buff Siegfriedism that very much feeds into this video game culture. Moving on to my work that has been explicitly inspired by Wagner. So this is an Oikospiel that Andy mentioned, or Ecospiel is the other pronunciation, and I just learned that. I thought that was amazing because I've been telling people for years, go ahead and pronounce it Ecospiel, because oikos is the root of economy and ecology. So Ecospiel actually brings out the meaning of it in English more than Oikospiel does. So I thought that was cool. I learned that today from Andy. Thank you. This is a big sprawling, I called it a dog opera because you play as a dog a lot. It's very kind of cute game kind of thing, but I was also exploring all of these operatic ideas that I had explored in that earlier work, but now I was in control of the visuals, the narrative, the sort of philosophy of it. And so I'm going to play a little passage when I introduce Tristan, the Tristan theme. So we kind of get the idea, hopefully. The idea is that this is a kind of musical braille that when you touch the note head, it plays it, almost like a notation is a piano, or it's a braille piano. So if you feel the bump, you hear the note. And this is a technique I developed with Mark Evanstein, we're going to hear him playing the piano for Soft Valkyrie first act. This is still a very exciting mechanic to me, but that was the first I used with Wagner, because I had this. I was like, I want to put some sort of complex harmony that I feel like I could learn from this braille, and I stuck it in there, and and I did learn from it, I think. So Eulenspiel was kind of a hit, a mini hit or whatever, but it was enough of a hit that this Holland Festival in Amsterdam got in touch. They liked it and asked if I would like to do a live version of it. And I didn't have any idea what that would mean, but I was totally enamored by opera by then. So I was like, I would love to do a live version if I can get some opera singers and get a little ensemble and everything. And they said, oh yeah, of course, yeah, whatever. In Europe, this is we've got European funding, and so we put on this Eulenspiel Book 2. I wrote for a Pierrot ensemble, kind of. It's like, but with a double bass rather than a cello, clarinet, piano, violin, and flute. And then the soprano and baritone. Both of these singers, Claren McFadden and Matthijs van de Woord, who would end up being Brunhilde and Wotan in my Valkyrie. So I'm just going to play a little clip. This is actually just with the ensemble and Claren singing, in a mechanic that kind of develops from that Tristan mechanic too. Let's see. Getting the audience to sing along. I'll just pause it briefly. This was projected, and this is this non-rhythmic melodic notation, partly thinking that it would be easier for the audience to sing along, and that you can kind of hear them singing along. But
are the praises, the glory, and the honor, and all blessing to you, Most High, do they belong, and no human is worthy to mention your name. A bit louder. Praise be you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially circle the sun, who is the day, and through whom you give us your light. And he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor, and bears a likeness of you, Most High One. Praise be you, my Lord, through sister moon, I don't hear you, and the stars in the heaven. You form them clear and precious and beautiful. Praise be you, my Lord, through brother wind and through the air, cloudy and serene, and every kind of weather, through whom you give sustenance to your creatures.
okay, I'll stop it there. But so that was a whole that was a one little aria or whatever from this. I called it heat cantata. It's really kind of more in some ways a cantata than an opera, though it does have a through line. But that was a really fun project, and I got to know the Holland Festival through this. So that when COVID hit in 2020, I pitched this soft Valkyrie idea. And I'm going to go into it, but first I'm going to give my Wagner his own justification. So here's Wagner in 1850 writing to his friend Oleg, saying, "After the third performance, the theater will be demolished and my score burned. To the people who enjoyed it, I shall then say, go away and do it yourself." Which is amazing, huh? And of course he got attached to the material and didn't want to do that, but I kind of thought, like, you know, I was kind of working as if, what if only the vocal score survived? So the full score is deleted or is burned, but the vocal score exists, and we have no idea how to put instrumentation on it, how to treat it, etc. Maybe we're aliens from Mars, so we don't even know about orchestral idioms. And so I went to town arranging it, and I'm gonna just play 6 minutes now. So this is gonna be a bit of a lengthy clip of the video introduction that I made and the prelude to Act 1. Just so that you know a little about what I'm talking about when I start talking about it later.
You are listening to Soft Valkyrie, a 2021 production of Richard Wagner's Die Walküre. Presented and commissioned by Holland Festival collaboration with Staatsoper Hanover and Dutch National Opera.
Wagner.
Starring Brian Dementa as Sigmund, Haley Clark as Sieglinde, Attila Chihar as Hunding, Matthijs van der Woerd as Wotan, Claren McFadden as Brunhilde, Nadine Sekunde as Fricka, and as the Valkyries, Mercedes Arcuri, Clara Nadesdin, Veronika Radek, and Monika Valerovic. Casting by Christian Karlstedt and David Kanaga. Act 1, MIDI piano reduction, performed by Mark Evenstein. Acts 2 and 3, performed by Ernst Münneke. Synoptic texts and dramaturgy by Laura Roling. Production by Jasper Berben for Holland Festival, with special thanks to Jochem Valkenburg. Words and music by Richard Wagner, in an English translation by Frederick Jameson. Directed and arranged by David Kanaga. Narrated by Stephen Fry.
The curtain rises. The inside of a dwelling place, an apartment built of wood, surrounds the stem of a great ash tree standing in the center. On the right, in the foreground, is the hearth. Behind it, the storeroom. At back, the great entrance door. On the left, at back, steps lead up to an inner room. Lower down, on the same side, a table with a broad bench behind it, fixed to the wall.
Okay, so that's the beginning. That's the beginning of Soft Valkyrie, and then of course we got 3.5 more hours on top of that, which we're just gonna watch excerpts from. Also, it's not as much watching past that point because it's largely a score follow video. Once the curtain rises there, we follow the vocal score like that. But I kind of wanted to give it this music video treatment at the beginning. So anyway. There's our first little sample of Soft Valkyrie, and let's talk a little more about it. So again, this was 2020, COVID hits. I had been recently working with the Holland Festival, and so I had this idea. I'd actually had the idea a while ago. Before I had really gotten into Wagner, I think I actually listened to Die Walküre, and I just loved the gentle Sieglinde Sigmund music, and I thought, this is great. Someone's got to just wipe out the dynamics from Wagner and do the whole thing softly, because this is great. I don't like the rest. Honestly, when I pitched it, that was kind of the idea. I said, it's going to be soft. It's all going to be soft. And as you know from the beginning, I changed my mind about that because I think the dynamics, they're fun. But that was my initial pitch, and there was kind of some provisional interest in it that took off once I did a demo of the first scene where I read the stage directions. I think that's where the magic really kind of starts happening, which we got Stephen Fry to do, which was amazing. But there's so many stage directions in Wagner, and it just works as like an audiobook if you read them. So the festival heard that and they said, well, this is great, let's do this as a podcast. And 6 months later or whatever it took, there was a tremendous amount of help that this was actually the very first little pitch that I said, just as a textural.
The storms are raging on the rolling sea, and on the highway of regret.
It's not even Wagner being sung. This is some ASMR. I'm not sure if any of you have heard about this. That this is a technique for singing really softly. You know about ASMR, huh?
I'm going to ask you what it means. I
ASMR.
know about it, but I don't know what ASMR means.
Well, I don't know what it stands for. We'd have to look up what it stands for. But it basically, there's supposed to be some unique nervous system response to hearing things really soft like this or something. I don't know. I think it sounds kind of nice, but some people think it feels very nice or something. I don't know. But I like it just as a soft thing. And so we could look it up, though, ASMR. But so I found the ASMR vocals, stuck it over this kind of fairy tale, Ride of the Valkyries. And they said, oh, that's kind of cool, but yeah, let's think about it. And then, but once I gave the demo with the stage directions narrated, then we were able to get Staatsoper Hanover and the Dutch National Opera on board as additional partners. And once we'd done that, we were good to go. This was amazing. I'm so grateful for how it worked out, but it was quite a production process. Jasper Bourbon, who was kind of the lead producer, he was very persistent in getting Stephen Fry. They were like, who should narrate? I was like, well, probably Stephen Fry. He does audiobooks. He's great. And I didn't think that was going to happen. But Jasper is very persistently, we got to get Stephen Fry. We got Stephen Fry. And then the cast otherwise. These are the stars. Brian the Menza is from Accra, Ghana. He's a R&B singer and rapper, does amazing music. I'll show some of his own music soon too. Siglenda was Haley Clark. She was working with Staatsoper Hanover at the time, and she came from the States and does a really good ASMR voice. She really got the direction on that and stuck with it. Hunding is Attila Chihar, who you can see here is a scary dude. He's like a heavy metal icon. But he'd been working with classical music in different forms, and so there was a connection to him. And he's a very sweet guy, actually. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be scary talking to him. But he's a total sweetheart, a very curious, artistic soul. But he was Hunding, and he started with the soft voice, and then he was like, no. I think it's better if I do my death growl. Then we've got Wotan and Brunhilde, and they were the ones that I worked with for the live Holland Festival performance, and they both did beautiful jobs. And interestingly, how this kind of worked out is they were closer to a classical operatic style. So there was this sort of effect of like the humans are working in kind of more contemporary idioms, and the gods are working in the operatic idiom, which I thought was kind of fitting, even though it was accidental. And then Nadine Secunda, she was Fricka, and I just got this today from the goodies pile. Nadine Secunda, I don't know if anyone's seen her, but here she is at Bayreuth in 1989, and so we got her. And she did Fricka an octave lower. I invited everyone, switch your octaves around to make it easier to sing with the microphone. That's the main thing I think about the soft singing is like, my understanding is like the crooning style, Frank Sinatra, all this kind of stuff, like took off because of the microphone. It allows a softer vocal style that wouldn't be possible in an unamplified context. And of course, opera stylistically developed in an unamplified context. So this whole idea of amplified music, allows for a variety of styles. And so Nadine did an amazing. She's a Bayreuth alumni, all this kind of stuff, and she had her own crooning style. And then here's the Valkyries, and the Valkyries really just went for it. They went full on God mode, totally in their operatic mode, which again I think creates this cool continuum of sort of humans to gods to these angels of death. And then the pianists, Mark Evanstein, good friend since we were kids. He's the one who I developed that sort of Braille music notation technique with. And he's a composer also, and also a good pianist. And so he helped with the demo originally. I was like, can we do scene 1 and all this? And he thought that was a great idea. So he did the demo and all of Act 1, but he wasn't available to continue. And so we had Ernst Munica, who was a rehearsal pianist at Dutch National Opera, continue it. So you can kind of hear a little bit of a stylistic change, but they're both wonderful pianists. So going back to this fact that I'm a game designer and a musician, this is a way I kind of started thinking about soft Valkyrie. Once we had the death growl show up and everything, and the softness isn't really just about texture anymore. But I started thinking about this concept of gamification, which I don't know if anyone's ever heard about this. This was a big sort of Bay Area talking point like 10 years ago. But you gamify brushing your teeth by giving you points or whatever, giving you a goodie if you do it, and punishing you if you don't or whatever. So it's very much like a game is about points, goals, punishments. But I had always felt that was not at all how I thought about games. I just thought about games as like a free element that could be moved around in different ways. And I called that about a decade ago. I said, this is soft gamification. Taking something that is, we're used to it being solid and kind of melting it down or shaking it out so that it becomes a variable and no longer a constant. And so that's exactly what I was doing with these soft Valkyrie different decisions. And so this is basically the sort of down and dirty list of the things that soft Valkyrie does. Is there's stage directions rather than staging. It becomes a kind of melodrama. The singing is an English translation. The singing is in a mixture of modern musical styles. The orchestration is arranged electronically, and the orchestration is occasionally replaced with all new material. And that basically, describes everything that goes on in soft Valkyrie. So here's another fun Wagner quote. Now that I have invented the invisible orchestra, I should like to invent the invisible theater. So this is, and of course the invisible orchestra is the orchestra pit at Bayreuth that, is so famous. The invisible theater, what is this? Well, we all like this when we were working on soft Valkyrie. So, well, this is literally turning the stage into an audio-only phenomena. So I'm going to play a little more, picking up from where we left off, and hear some of this invisible theater. And it's not a bad time to close your eyes, too, unless you like following along with the vocal score. But it is meant to be an audio-only thing.
The curtain rises. The inside of a dwelling place, an apartment built of wood, surrounds the stem of a great ash tree standing in the center. On the right, in the foreground, is the hearth. Behind it, the storeroom. At back, the great entrance door. On the left, at back, steps lead up to an inner room. Lower down, on the same side, a table with a broad bench behind it, fixed to the wall. Siegmund opens the entrance door from without and enters. He holds the latch in his hand and looks round the room. He appears exhausted with overexertion. His dress and appearance show that he is in flight. Seeing no one, he closes the door behind him, walks as with the last efforts of an exhausted man, to the hearth, and there throws himself down on a rugged bearskin.
Whoever holds this heart, here must I rest me.
He sinks back and remains stretched out, motionless. Sieglinde enters from the inner chamber, thinking that her husband has returned. Her grave look shows surprise when she finds a stranger stretched on the hearth.
A stranger here, why came he hither?
She comes nearer.
What man is this who lies on the hearth?
As Siegmund does not move, she comes still nearer and looks at him.
So that's the enchanted audiobook effect, or the melodrama effect. And this is something that I became fascinated with while working on it. Is this idea of melodrama in the classical sense? This shows up in like Beethoven's Fidelio, Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream music, is just spoken dialogue with music underneath. And it's a very different effect than sung dialogue, and it's a very different effect from Singspiel or whatever, where there's no orchestra underneath. And so I got very into this. Oh my God, Stephen Fry's talking, and the orchestra underneath, and the effect of that, I think, is melodrama in the classical sense. So anyway, this is what the document that was given to Stephen Fry. It was I transcribed all of the from Frederick Jameson's translation, all the stage directions, and it ended up being 19 pages of that. And Stephen Fry sat down and recorded them. He does a lot of audiobooks and different things. And this is a little screenshot I took of the screen. I was watching it on him at like 4 a.m. He's in London recording. And is there a funny little buzz? Are you here?
Oh, you're traffic outside.
Buzz, buzz, buzz. Maybe I'm just resonating with one of the ceiling panels or something. Anyway, not a big deal. So yeah, he did all these recordings, and it was fun. We talked like a little bit, but I guess I was just like this tiny little screen. He's like, oh, someone's there. What's going on? But he would go through and narrate and be like, oh, this part's amazing. This part's so great. And so this was his when he was narrating all these spring song. The anticipation of this, he was waxing poetic about how much he loved it, maybe his favorite part in The Ring, so I thought it was a good time to play an excerpt of that. And I think I'm going to cut it maybe a little short, though, because this is 7-minute excerpt, but this is where I got into working on this, and I just could not stop listening to the music go forward. This is where I like just became totally hooked on Wagner, because I'd be like, okay, I'm going to work on these like 2 measures here, and I work on the 2 measures. Ooh, that goes someplace good, and then I keep listening, and then I find 20 minutes have passed. Oh, I got to go back and I got to work on this again. And especially this, as you all know, I'm sure, this Scene 3 of Act 1. It's just amazing continuity. So I probably am going to cut it off a little sooner, but maybe not. We'll see.
The door remains open. Outside, a glorious spring night. The full moon shines in, throwing its bright light on the pair, so that suddenly they can fully and clearly see each other. Siegmund draws Sieglinde to him on the couch with tender vehemence, so that she sits beside him under the increasing brilliance of the moonlight.
Winter storms have waned in the moon of May. sister is freed by the brother. In ruined lives what held them apart. Joyfully greet now the loving pair made one of the love beat and spring.
The spring that I have so longed for in frosty winter spell. My heart greeted thee with blissfulest dread as thy look at first on me lighted straight.
The door
I gotta stop. It's always painful.
outside.
Always painful stopping anywhere in that scene, but I think running behind on time a little bit. Okay, we got another Wagner quote here. So this is written to Emil Sander of Melbourne, Australia, when Lohengrin's about to be premiered there. And he says, "My very dear sir, I was delighted to receive your news and cannot refrain from thanking you for it. I hope you will see to it that my works are performed in English. Only in this way can they be intimately understood by an English-speaking audience. We are hoping that they will be so performed in London." Kind of surprising, I think, these days. Oh, we got a question.
It's not a question. It just really struck me in listening to that, how we go to the opera, and at least for me, thank God for the titles, even though how many times I've seen it. You know, even if you could understand the German or you could understand the Italian, you ain't getting most of it, you know. But listening to that, just like, I know even when something is sung in English, you still don't get it, most of it. And I would say I got about 90% of that.
Right.
But I also say I closed my eyes. You got to close your eyes, folks. You know, obviously. But it just interesting. It just struck me is that I could really get the text because of the method of presentation that normally you just don't.
Absolutely. No, and I mean, and it's wonderful to hear that. Yeah, that's how it feels to me too. And when I found this quote, I was like, yeah, right on. It's so important. Getting the text, and in my experience, it's been very important getting every beat of the text and how it relates to like a given tone. It's not enough for me to hear a melody and read a text where you're kind of dissociating a little bit. You have your like dry text that you're reading, and then you have this wet melody, and you know that they're related, but you don't know exactly how. But when you hear a melody, this is kind of like singer-songwriter music, and every word has a tone attached to it. At least in my experience working with this, I felt a very deep connection, I think, to the relationship of the action and music. So anyway, I'm so glad that the text was clear anyway like that. A question, yeah?
Yeah, two points. First, when you said you had gotten Stephen Fry to be the narrator, my very first thought was, oh, he wants to name one of his peers who happens to be named Stephen Fry. Not just Stephen Fry, also alluded to Jeeves.
Right.
But it was apparent that it was.
Right.
And my second point is, I read in one of the letters, I forget which it is, but when he went on tour to England, the Queen of England asked him to please perform the Wagner in English, and he just blew it off. He said, never.
Oh, Wagner said this.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Well, I would be very, I mean, that's not the first time that he's contradicted himself in an extreme way, huh?
Can you repeat that?
So, oh yeah, sorry. What's your name again? Just yeah.
Karen Gabrielson.
Okay, Karen Gabrielson mentioned that there's another letter of Wagner's where he's met with the Queen of England, and she asked for the operas to be performed in English, and Wagner said to her, "Absolutely not." What was the?
He said he ranted on quite a bit.
He ranted on too.
But the bottom line, no.
But bottom line was no. So this is interesting. Yeah, we got mixed messages here, but I like this message. I've been cherry picking these, these Wagner quotes that paint a kind of different picture of Wagner, in terms of he's wanting to burn the stage, he's wanting everything in English, and a Wagner that suits the way I've been working with the material. But anyway, that's very interesting. I'll have to find that too. So, the singing. I just wanted to give more. I was trying to structure the talk so that there's ideas and excerpts and it's all mixed together, but didn't find the perfect form for that. So I just want to give some clips of other favorite bits and giving demos of everyone singing. This is Brunhilde really knocking out the soft instruction, knocking it out of the park. A really beautiful bit from Act 3, Scene 3.
She raises herself gradually to a kneeling position. Wotan's attitude is unchanged, grave and gloomy.
So that was just a beautiful, soft performance. And interesting, the legibility of the words on all these. I do think that was a little less legible. It's hard to, when the notes go high up, maybe it's harder to be legible. I mean, there's interesting things here with if the words are going to be prioritized. And I remember I think she did an octave down version of that too, because I said try to octaves down, and I think maybe that one might have been more legible, but less beautiful, so there's decisions like these to be made. And so here's another interesting study in legibility. We'll hear Attila Chahar, heavy metal legend, coming off of Sigmund's Tale.
Tells you this tale, whom as wolfing many well know. Marvels and monster stories, the rest of daring cast. Backwards, the wolfing, the kings of a warrior clan. I heard dark rumors spoken, no. Wolf nor nothing new.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I loved. What I was kind of surprised with the death growl is that it carries the pitches very well too. I don't know. I love his melodic style.
Is he Fafner as well?
I know, wouldn't that be great? Yeah, no Fafner yet. I would love to do the other ones. That was my original pitch. I said, let's do the whole ring cycle, soft ring, and they said, well, let's start with it. But so here I wanted to give some little demos. Actually, since we were talking about him, let's do this. This is Hunding in his natural habitat. Yeah. There was a lot of like Nadine Secunda. She was very excited. She likes heavy metal too. There's a lot of kind of metal opera crossover stuff, big loud stuff, I guess, partly. There's a lot of horror music in Wagner too. I'd be curious other people's thoughts on this, but I kind of feel like Wagner, I mean, maybe there's some of this in like the Weber's Freischütz or something, but I feel like Wagner kind of like invented this like horror music, like the Rings theme itself. It's just horrific, sort of spiritual music. And I feel like this picks up there's a lot of interest in heavy metal in Wagner. And I think the worst of it, of course, is there's some racist heavy metal, white supremacist stuff, and then they've got their own reasons. But that's not Attila Chihar. Or the band there, but you never know with other groups. It's like with the Wagner group, the Russian paramilitary stuff or whatever. There is this association of Wagner with evil things, and understandably. But now let's hear Brian the Mensa's work on his own, just to put these two, because they are the most non-operatic in the cast, and so I think it's fun to hear what kind of work they're doing on their own.
Pulling to the finish. Now so we go feet high. Guys in the time and yeah, I'm straight. Left me make I enjoy my life. 3 days name is straight. Small money will come in my hand. Got to do with taxes. Caution my snatch what's left of India. Make but down. Yay, I'm back in my feelings. I don't know what type of subjecting. I don't know what type of subjecting. NSC just know the subjecting. I don't even drink, but tonight it's same. I'm them vex, but he can't complain. Girl to break my heart to pain. I'm just glad that I got this chain. This one said for the fiancé. If I come out right, they go take show me. If you make I just stay house, watch my Netflix movie peacefully.
Okay. We'll clip it there. Yeah, kind of amazing. It's really great. Yeah, I heard that and saw that he was available for work and does more R&B kind of material too, and I was totally thrilled. So yeah, there's Hunding and Sigmund. Excuse me. And here's another little clip of them before. Well, do we have time or should I?
Yeah.
We have time. Okay, we have time.
On the
Sorry, let me. Oh, I think I need to go back in the slideshow. There we go.
on the dead.
Siegmund faces Sieglinde with a look of sorrowful fervor.
Now know thou questioning why it is not freedman who grieves thee.
Sieglinde looks on the ground, pale, deeply. Hunding rises.
I know a riotous race, not wholly it holds, but men must reveal. This hated by all and by me. For vengeance forth was I sworn. They meant to win me for kingsman's blood. Too late came I, and now return home. The flying outcast trace to find again in my house.
He sits down.
Okay, so yeah, that whole scene is a real pleasure too. That was a blast to work on. Those are probably my favorite favorite two little excerpts. But I love the whole Sigmund journey. I think there's working with the melodrama aspect where I'm hearing the text and I'm hearing the music underneath. There's a very interesting effect that I think I kind of would drop into psychologically, where the vocals and like Sigmund's vocals and Stephen Fry's narration would exist on a similar plane. Like they call this like diegesis is what Plato called Homer's narration, and in movies it becomes the diegetic field is like what's actually happening on set. But for Plato, it's what Homer's describing, and so I just because it's just fascinating the degree to which I could hear Sigmund sing and really visualize the stories that he was telling. Which, when I've tried to watch productions of the Ring, I never have that. I can't, I'm not imagining these things so much as being like, oh yeah, he's telling the story, but I'm not there with him. So this is a wonderful scene. Okay, let's listen to some Nadine Secunda. This is Fricka's entrance.
Brunhilde disappears behind the mountain height of the sun. Now Fricka, in a car drawn by two rams, comes up from the ravine to the top of the pass, where she stops suddenly and alights. She strides impetuously towards Wotan in the foreground. Seeing Fricka approaching him, Wotan murmurs under his breath.
The wanted storm, the wanted strife. But firm, here must I hold me.
As Fricka approaches, she moderates her pace and places herself with dignity before Wotan.
Where in mountain wilds thou hidest to escape the eyes of thy wife. Lonely here seek I thee out, that help to me thou mayst be roused.
What troubles Fricka, freely be told.
I have heard Hunding's cry, for vengeance called he on me, and wedlock's guardian gave ear to him. I made oath to punish the deeds of this infamous pair who rashly wrought him a wrong.
So that's Nadine Secunda, which again, as a reminder, she's the one who's in this program. She starred in Bayreuth Lohengrin, the Werner Herzog production. I think that was her first Bayreuth. And here, this isn't at Bayreuth, but this is her as Sieglinde in 1997. Which that's such an amazing Sieglinde passage. But so that's, how many years ago was that? It's 20, 23, 28 years ago. And so I just think it's wonderful. I think people grow out of these roles. Okay, she can't sing Sieglinde anymore, but she's an incredible Fricka. And so we'll hear a little bit more. This is her closing passage.
Brunhilde appears with her horse on the rocky path to the right. On seeing Fricka, she breaks off suddenly, and during the following, she slowly and silently leads her horse down the mountain path and hides it in a cave.
Thy eternal consort's holiest honor, her shield shall guard today. Derided by men, deprived of might. Surely we gods were o'erthrown, where today my right resplendent and pure, not avenged by thy valorous maid.
So, yeah, I love that. And of course, she's an octave down, I think, all the time, at least much of the time. Keeps doing this. Which, from doing all the work on it, that just sounds right to me. It's amazing. You can just switch octaves, and it really usually is okay. So let's see. I realize there's 6 minutes left until 2:30. How strict are we in terms of the cutoff? So strict.
We just need to end by 3 o'clock so we can make it through.
Need to end by 3 o'clock. Okay. But okay. Well, let me just try to. I do want to play this. This part's so good. This is the last of my particularly the vocal selection. So this is the bit that Nadine was singing. But now we're hearing Haley Clark sing the famous "O Radiant Wonder," and we're going to hang on for a few minutes and go into Wotan and hear the Valkyries do their thing a bit as well.
Sieglinde is deeply moved. Hastens away on the right in front. Black thunderclouds surround the height. A fearful storm approaches from the back. A growing fiery light on the right. Wotan calls from off stage. The Valkyries retreat up the rocky point in fear. Brunhilde lets herself be drawn with them. They hide Brunhilde among them and look anxiously toward the wood, which is now lit up by brilliant firelight, while the background has become quite dark. Wotan strides in terrible, wrathful excitement from the wood and approaches the group of Valkyries on the height, looking angrily around for Brunhilde.
Where is Brunhild? Where is one? Would he then dare to shield her from vengeance? Yourselves rash ones. I know, bring me the hidey from me. Turn ye from her, cast off fishy henceforth, as of worth from her she cast. Kummer ich trug, such sorry valor won ye from me.
Okay. So, I think we've pretty much heard a sample of everyone. And that final Valkyrie passage, which is amazing, all their counterpoint there. So it is 2:30. I wonder, I mean, I would love to do question and answer, discussion kind of stuff, but I also way over stuffed my presentation with slides, and I have more material that I could do, or we could stop if people need to start packing up, because this is the official. You say what's?
I think we should at least take some questions and answers. What do the rest of you?
We'll do that, huh? And then maybe in some of my answers I'll touch on some of the other things that I have, but yes.
So where is this available? Is it online?
Yeah.
Is it
It is. It's on. Well, so what we've been watching is all on YouTube. If you search "Soft Valkyrie," I think it comes up as the #1 thing.
It's the whole 4 hours then. Okay, cool.
It's a whole 4 hours. Yeah, almost 4 hours. So yeah. So if you're curious, of course, yeah, you can listen to more.
Okay, regarding looking it up, I looked up soft Walküre, Walkure, on Google, and I got all sorts of ads for soft walking shoes. That was Google trying to sell me soft walking shoes.
Right. Yeah, I should have considered the spelling. Yeah, what do they call it? SEO, search engine optimization for. Because yeah, I think that maybe even in one of the promotional materials, it was soft Valkyrie and everything. But you got to spell it in the English way. Is unfortunately the.
With a W.
No, English.
With a V.
VALKY.
Yeah, okay.
RIE. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I think when I listen to that, I listen to the podcast, and I think it is a very interesting project. I just don't think it's Wagner anymore. Why don't you put your name to it? Because, I mean, it's a shame, right? It's full of interesting ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think that it is in this kind of middle ground where it's like too much Wagner for it to be me, but you could argue it's too much me for it to be Wagner. It felt awfully Wagner for me. It felt like a pretty faithful translation, but at least of the score, of the vocal score. But yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. I really want to do the rest of the thing, like I mentioned. In fact, I'm going to put on my final page of these other things that I want to do, and maybe I'll even end up playing one of them here. But I want to do the rest, and I want, at least with this, what I call Das California Gold, to treat it very freely and sort of use like a sample-based background that follows the harmonics, but not the textures of the vocal score, because in many ways that is when it got most fun and maybe best, because the fact is when I was just arranging Wagner's music, it kind of pales in comparison to Wagner's orchestration. But if I kind of had a feeling for what's going on harmonically, and then I start playing along on the piano and I kind of start doing something else, then it has a little more life to it. So I am interested in approaching additional arrangements more from that perspective, I think. And yeah, David.
About translations, how did you pick the Jameson translation? Because it's terrible. No, it's almost as incomprehensible as the German.
I know.
The Seattle Opera. Back in the old days, used to every year you would ring twice, once in German and once in English.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got to see an English one with Rita Hunter and Alberto Remedios, who were top shelf English. They did the recorded with Reginald Goodall. They did the recorded.
Okay, right.
Ring from E&O. And they used Andrew Porter's translation, which was also done as a singing translation.
Right.
And it fits really, really well. It's comprehensible. And he worried not just fitting syllables to notes,
Right.
but he cared about such things as the German Schwer, which is
For sword.
upwards.
Or-
Yeah,
oh, okay,
is upwards and bright, whereas English sword is down and heavy, and
Interesting.
tried to match that kind of texture.
So how did he translate that?
You can't much get away from sword, I don't think.
So it's weird. Yeah. No, that's a great question. I was aware of. I feel like it's possible that Andrew Porter's is copyrighted still, and Jameson's isn't.
Oh, quite.
And maybe that's something that we could have licensed. John Dethridge was in the process of doing a new translation, and I asked him. I actually didn't realize that his old one wasn't a singing translation. So can we use your translation? Because it was very clear. And he said, well, I'm working on a singing translation, but it's not done. I think that you have to use Jameson's. And so I was like, well, that's John Dethridge. He's a very, he's an authority. So I figured Jameson's it. But I tried to switch around sometimes with the singers. Okay, let's make this a little clearer. So sometimes there's variations from the Jameson. But it is very difficult to understand sometimes. Definitely.
What? Oh.
Oh.
No.
So this clearly was a labor of love. How were you able to monetize it? Who were your sponsors? The opera houses that you...
Yes. It was the opera houses, so Holland Festival, Dutch National Opera, Staatsoper Hanover, and then there was some additional funding from NTR, which is a Dutch radio, and then the Goethe Institute. They gave less, both of those, but it was definitely a labor of love on top of that too. I was working on a video game project simultaneously, and but it was a commission. It paid enough where I was like, okay, I got to give it my all, and I want to give it my all, and but yeah, that's kind of why on these saying I want to complete the cycle, I would love to do that, but I do a lot of creative work on my own free time, but I think these are too big, too big for that. Yes.
Two things. It's sort of interesting, but when I came originally, I was expecting the opposite of this, because one of the problems of staging Wagner operas is you have so many challenges. The singers sometimes don't look like the parts that they're playing, and then all of the special effects are hard to do. So I expected it to be more like a cartoon version of The Ring, where you don't have those challenges, and with singing in the standard way as the background. So this was actually the reverse. There wasn't anything visual except the score. So that was kind of interesting how I thought, well, shucks, I was totally wrong, right? And then the other thing I want to mention is when I was a student at the UC Berkeley Music Department, and that was a billion years ago, Andrew Porter taught there, and he came and explained how he was working on this English translation of The Ring, and how he tried as much as possible striving to preserve the alliteration of the original. And so that promoted or made it easier to understand. And he was the one who said to us students that compared to German, English is way harder to understand when it is sung.
Interesting.
Is that a stinker or what?
Interesting, right.
I'm going to have to leave early because I have to get to a rehearsal on time.
Oh, sure.
So if I leave, it's not because I don't like it.
Okay. No problem at all.
We should
thank you.
One more question. I think we need to start wrapping up.
Is it possible to, this might be too difficult, to find the section where Wotan sends Brunhilde to the rock? Is that easy to find in your score?
That would probably not too hard to find.
Okay.
Should we play that as outro music? Or exit music? Yeah.
Exit music.
Let's see. So Wotan leading Brunhilde.
Her farewell.
Yeah.
Farewell.
Oh, just the farewell. So I actually had that was something Wotan's farewell that I didn't. What's that? The late vote. Oh, is that what it is? Oh, okay. So I don't know. Here, you tell me if this does the trick. The passage that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Well, yeah. I guess we can pack up, leave it play, because this is, and this he does a beautiful job with this too. But it's just 11 minutes to the end, so everyone could sit or pack or whatever.
When childish spins of heroes praise from sweetest lips go forth. Those
We're putting this on pause for just a second. I'm going to just make a few comments, and then we'll play the music again, where you can use as exit music, so to speak, since Wotan and Brunhilde are exiting. I just want to thank David for an outstanding lecture.
Thank you all so much.
I can't wait till you do the rest of the ringside. And this is what I like about Wagner Society is that we have room for healthy disagreement. Okay? I think this was the epitome of Wagner myself, because remember, we're coming up to the 150th anniversary of the Ring Cycle. Do you think if Wagner were alive today, he would write it the same way he did 150 years ago? No. This is what he would be writing. This is Wagner. So, thank you very much. As we're exiting, we'll have Wotan's farewell in the background. And thank you very much for coming. Oh, please